On behalf of the City of Yonkers and Untermyer Gardens Conservancy, welcome to the height of summer here at Untermyer Gardens. Everything is really green right now, so not a lot of color, but I'm really happy that it's green. We've had almost 2 months of very minimal rain. We're in the middle of our second heat wave at the moment. So I've decided to come down to our rhododendron walk, which is a little bit shady, which is starting to transform and really look like a garden. This is in thanks in large part to Ira Feinberg from the plant group, who has donated all the perennials that I'm surrounded by. Margaret Roach, one of our good supporters, has donated a handful of Regerzia that's really making an impact in the garden, which we may have a chance to look at here in a moment. And then our rhododendrons and companion woodies that are in this garden are really turning this into something of a space, finally. For the first couple years, it sort of looked just like a rhododendron nursery, but now it's really starting to become a garden that connects to the ruin garden, which you see over my shoulder. It's just below the ancient Roman columns at the bottom of the vista, and really starts to tie this whole lower part of the garden together. And so we'll take a walk around and look some of the plants that are showing off some interest or a little bit of color here in the middle of summer. So what's so appealing about this space to me, in addition to the logistical aspects of connecting the old Croton Aqueduct and the Metro North train station to the rest of the garden, this whole area acts sort of like a backdoor lower entrance to Untermyer, is this is really one of the most healthy overstories, tree canopies, that we have in the garden. We have a lot of sassafras tree, one of my favorites from growing up in Missouri, as seedlings throughout the garden, self-sown seedlings. We have some bigger trees as well. I'm surrounded by some black birch trees in addition, and then there's a handful of native tulip trees and native oak trees all through this space. So it really is the healthiest area of woodland in the garden. Since then, we've also added a swamp white oak and a white oak to the space as well. A handful of Hamamelis or witch-hazel acts as an understory throughout the whole area, and some fun redbuds. We have one, Cercis canadensis, called Flamethrower, that has some really interesting colored foliage, which we are eager to see how that performs in this space as well. So I'm here next to a Clerodendrum trichotomum, the only plant really in flower at the moment, so a great plant to think about for flowering in the height of summer. It's hugely fragrant. I'm just wrapped in the perfume of these flowers at the moment. This is sort of a woodland edge plant, so it's out here in a bit more sun. It'll take some sun. Interestingly, we grew this as a display container in the walled garden for a number of years, and are happy to finally get it in the ground and see it to really start to turn into something. So again, stepping just outside the woodland of the rhododendron walk a little bit, last year the working title for this area of the garden was the mulch desert. But thanks again to the plant group and Ira Feinberg, we've been able to fill this up with perennials. So everything just went in this spring, and in fact, John Giacono and our interns just planted the rest of this area with a bunch of ornamental grasses 2 weeks ago. Again, right here in the middle of July into August. And so we're really starting to see a garden take shape here. I love what these ornamental penstemon are doing. The grasses, they're already starting to show some flower. The morning light and the evening light look really beautiful on the plumes on the grasses. And then we have a number of other things in here that should take us all through the season with something of distinct interest. So slipping back out of the sun into the shade, which again on this 105-degree heat index day feels really nice. I'm here behind a pulmonaria. This one is called Silver Bouquet. It's a great plant for dry shade, and in addition to purple pink spring flowers, which are in abundance and worth growing all on its own, we have this really interesting, almost completely silvery gray variegation on the plant. There's a wide variety of pulmonarias to choose from, and I would choose them based on the foliage variegation. And we've had a lot of fun with this one so far, but again, with the plant group and providing all those plants, and they have a great list. We've been able to add several different cultivars to this particular garden. Another really fun plant for a marginal shade spot is this Heuchorrhilla. It's called Happy Hour Lime, and looking at that foliage, you can see where it gets its cultivar name. It'll take some sun. It's getting a little burnt in this summer's heat, but we're having fun with that one too. And it's kind of interplanted with a viola. It's a straight species viola called Viola labradorica. It's starting to get a little green here in the middle of the summer, but you can see just a hint of that purple. A lot of times through the spring especially, and again in the fall, you'll get a lot more purple on that foliage. And the thing I like about this plant, when it's happy, it'll self-sow and really act as a really interesting ground cover through the entire garden. So I mentioned the Regerzia. This one's called Podophylla, that was given to us by Margaret Roach, who's a friend of the garden and quite the expert herself. I've seen this grow in her garden, and we planted a big sweep of it coming all the way down the hill, but it has this great almost tropical-like foliage and should colonize fairly well. Hopefully not too well, right, Margaret? But we have it planted here with another pulmonaria that I mentioned we like using. This is a cultivar called High Contrast with a little bit blotchier variegation on it, and that's also combined with a Carex, and we also love Carex for dry shade. This is a Carex laxicolmus. It's called Hob is the cultivar name. You might find it in the trade listed as Bunny Blue. So I'm taking a little bit of liberty, and I'm stepped out of the rhododendron walk because I don't think we would have planted the rhododendron walk except for, well, first of all, Untermyer's great love for rhododendrons. But we have this gatehouse anchoring the whole area. And I don't think we would have planted the rhododendron walk without this anchoring the spot. And I know we've done a video of this in one of our early days and saw this in very early spring. Now you get a chance to see it mature. But the real reason I came down here was to talk about this one particular plant that we put inside a house. It's a small tree. It's called Styrax japonica. This particular cultivar is called Evening Light. In spring, late spring, it's covered with these pendulous silver bell flowers. What's interesting about this plant, it holds up through the whole year because it has purple foliage. It's a bit faded right now in the middle of summer. And then we end up left with these pendulous hanging seed pods, little lanterns that hang all over the plant. But I think it's a lot of fun in proximity to this bench, kind of dominates the space, and it's just fun to have a tree growing inside of a house, right? So maybe we'll come back and look at the ruined garden later in the year and see how this is all working out. I mentioned last time there's a lot of gardens I want to share with you. Our vegetable garden is on the list. So we'll keep doing this, and thank you for your time.